Today I'm going to show you how I broke into the tech industry in 3 months. So the year is 2017. I just quit my job to try to pursue this job in technology. Now I wanted to be a front-end web developer. That's kind of what I learned. I had dabbled in it a little bit in my free time. I was not an expert. I had no skills whatsoever. And my situation meant I didn't have much time to make this thing work out if it was going to work out. I learned there were pretty much 3 options. I could have gone to code boot camp, I could have gone back to school, or I could have built up my own portfolio of work and tried to use that as like a resume builder. And I decided college was too much time and too expensive. I already had some student loans. Boot camp wasn't something that seemed like I was gonna get as much out of it as I, for my personality, would have. So I landed on the third option, which was to build a portfolio of my own work to prove that I had the skills needed to do the job that I wanted. To build my portfolio, I would find restaurant websites that didn't look that good and kind of redesign them in a way that kind of met and showed off some of my skills, and I would put that on my portfolio. And the other big thing that I did is I launched a personal website that was literally a portfolio of all my projects where I talked through all the highlights and the technology and the things that I figured out so that it could look the way that it looked. So at this point, I'm getting restless working in my parents' basement, learning code, writing all this stuff, and not knowing what's going to happen. So I decided to start applying to jobs. I got some interviews, felt pretty good, but it didn't work out, right? Because I didn't have experience. And experience is necessary to get an entry-level job, which is crazy, right? Where am I gonna get the experience? Does no one care that I did actual work and wrote actual code? Since I kept failing to get an actual real job, I decided to look for jobs that had exposure. You know, maybe I could get something that's alongside the real job. And I thought of Harrison Ford. You know, Harrison Ford took 12 years to get into Star Wars. He was cast as an extra in a lot of movies and he had a little bit of success, but he actually left to become a carpenter before he ended up coming back into the industry and nailing it with Star Wars. The lesson there is humility. So I decided to look for internships because maybe I could start at the very bottom and grind my way to the top because I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Back to Harrison Ford for a second, the reason that he was even able to get an audition for Star Wars is because he knew George Lucas through a relationship. Harrison Ford may not have the striking appeal that I do at my current age, but the same way that he had a relationship that got him an opportunity, I did too. See, my mom's coworker's daughter, I had tutored her in math years back, and I had built a pretty good relationship with that family. And that coworker knew the hiring manager for the internship that I applied to, and that got me in the door. I still had to prove myself in the interview, you know, if that hadn't gone well. It just wouldn't have worked out, but it did work out, and I landed an internship. So was this the promised land web development internship that I thought I would get? No. I wasn't writing any code. It was a ticket management position. I was moving tickets, support tickets that came into the different teams that had to deal with them. I wasn't actually fixing any problems. I was just kind of a cog in the wheel among some other small responsibilities. But the important part is exposure. My team worked alongside the web developers, so I could see around me potential opportunities for working in some of that space. But I didn't take this internship with just an idea that I was gonna work 15 hours a week. No, I actually followed 3 rules with the internship. The first is I made my intentions very clear. My manager knew where I wanted to go, so it opened his eyes to that, but it also helped me to solidify exactly what I knew that I wanted. The second is I was willing to do literally any job. Obviously the internship itself wasn't ideal, but I would try to connect myself and integrate with other teams and help out where I could with my limited amount of skills and just try to be part of some of the movements so that I could get some exposure and meet a lot of people. The third rule is I would ask forgiveness, not permission. Now, I was an intern. I was not a full-time employee, and I wasn't making all that much money, and I was supposed to work only 40 hours a week. I continuously exceeded that number over and over and over again because I needed to learn, and I needed the time, and I kind of needed the money, but they didn't pay me for the extra hours. Now, a big part of asking for forgiveness instead of permission isn't just to be a knucklehead. Sometimes it's to push the boundaries on those things that you're not willing to wait for, but they need to get done. But these 3 rules were like fuel for my engine towards my career. And so a few weeks into my internship, I'm sitting there and I've been kind of breaking the rules and kind of pushing the boundaries and doing a little bit more than most interns would in that position. And I was called into my boss's office and I'm thinking, uh-oh, this is it. He's figured me out and it's time for me to get back to square one and try to find another place to go. So I walk into his office, I sit down and he says, Kevin, just want you to let you know that today we'd like to extend an offer for a full-time position for you to work for our company. And when he slid the offer across and I looked at that number, I knew it was way more than I was qualified to make. But here's the deal. I didn't break into the tech industry for money. I broke into it because it's what I wanted to do. And what I learned is that by putting in the passion, putting in the work, and just caring about what you're doing day to day, the money will follow. The money will follow, the rewards will follow. But honestly, following your passion, doing good work, and if the money isn't following, it means that something's wrong with your environment and something has to change with where you are or who you're reporting to or the nature of the work that you're involved in. And honestly, if you're at a crossroads and you're trying to figure out how you want to break into it, I'm not saying don't go into college. I'm not saying don't do a boot camp. I'm not saying do what I did and build a portfolio. But honestly, movement is better than just sitting there and being frozen by the analysis paralysis. Just do something, right? And as soon as you do that something, you'll know right away whether it was a move that you should have taken or not taken, and you can kind of pivot from there. But just get started. Go in any direction you want to go. The other major lesson that I learned is that it's really good to make your intentions known. Not only by putting it out there are you putting yourself, making yourself accountable to where you want to go, other people are starting to be aware of what you want too, and you become branded and looked at in a different light than if you just quietly kept all that to yourself. And that actually plays out in a lot of really beneficial ways that I've started to apply to other areas of my life. For instance, today, right now, I'm starting a new company called Tetheros, and I'm working on that right now kind of quietly because it's not quite ready yet, but where I want to go with it, I'm going to be very public about my goals, ambitions, and vision with that company because I want to make myself accountable to that, but I also want to make it known when people think about me, they also think about this other thing. So I hope some of that was helpful, useful, or insightful, and I hope to see you in the next episode.